In the peaceful village of Ravenshade, nestled between gentle hills and flowing streams, there lived two sisters who were the pride of the village. Elena, the elder of the two, had hair that sparkled like gold under the sun. Her long, flowing locks framed a face that was both soft and striking, and her eyes were as blue as the sky after a spring rain. People would stop what they were doing just to catch a glimpse of her. Then there was Rose. She was a bit younger, with soft brown hair that shimmered like rich earth under the sunlight. Her eyes were bright green, like fresh spring leaves, full of life and energy. Rose was known for her radiant smile, which made everyone around her feel special. While she was more quiet than her sister, her beauty had an undeniable charm. Their family had lived in Ravenshade for generations. The house they lived in sat on a hill just outside the village, surrounded by large gardens full of blooming flowers. The view from their home was breathtaking, with the village stretched out below them and the forest and fields beyond. It was a home built with love, passed down through the years by their ancestors. Elena and Rose's parents, kind-hearted and hard-working, were the backbone of their family. Their father, a well-respected farmer in the village, spent most of his days tending to the large garden that surrounded their home. He grew everything from vegetables to fruit, always ensuring that his family had the best of what the earth could provide. Their mother, a gentle soul, spent her days in the kitchen, baking bread and preparing meals, always with a smile on her face. Though the sisters' lives seemed perfect to everyone in the village, they both held a secret wish deep inside their hearts. Elena, with her beauty, longed for someone who would love her, not just for her looks, but for who she truly was. She wanted a love built on trust and understanding, not just admiration. Rose, while always surrounded by attention, wanted to find someone who could see past her cheerful exterior and love her for her kindness and gentle nature. The village often whispered about the two sisters. Many thought of them as the epitome of beauty and grace, and indeed, they were. But there was more to them than just their looks. Elena had a quick mind, always curious about the world around her. She loved to read and had a deep understanding of the world. Rose, on the other hand, was the heart of the village. She was the one who made everyone feel welcome, who cheered up the sad and helped the sick. But despite the love and admiration of everyone around them, neither sister had yet found the one person who could see beyond their beauty and love them for who they truly were. In the village, many young men admired Elena and Rose from afar. They would often glance in their direction while working in the fields, at the market, or during the village festivals. Yet, none of them had the courage to speak to the sisters directly. There were many who dreamed of being with them, but were too shy to take that first step. Two young men stood out among the many admirers. Henry, a strong and gentle farmer, and William, a kind-hearted merchant. Henry was a tall young man, with broad shoulders and hands that were rough from working the fields. He had a quiet strength about him, and though he was well-liked, he never seemed to have the courage to speak to Elena. He had noticed her many times before, but was always too nervous to approach her. Then there was William. He was not as strong as Henry, but his kindness was his strength. He was a merchant who traveled to nearby villages, selling goods and bringing back news from far-off places. He was thoughtful and always ready to listen. William had noticed Rose from the first day he saw her at the market. She had a way of smiling that made him feel at ease, and her laughter was like a melody to his ears. However, like Henry, he couldn't bring himself to ask her out. Elena and Rose had both noticed the two men watching them from a distance, and while the attention was flattering, they were both waiting for something more, something real. They were both hoping for someone who would be brave enough to talk to them, to see beyond their beauty and admire their hearts. One evening, after a long day of chores, the two sisters sat together by the fireplace in their cozy living room. The fire crackled, filling the room with warmth and light. Elena looked over at Rose and sighed, a soft smile on her face. "You know, Rose," Elena said, "sometimes I wonder if anyone could love me for who I truly am, not just because of my looks." Rose nodded, her eyes reflecting a similar longing. "I feel the same way, Elena. Sometimes it feels like everyone loves me because I look a certain way, but not because they really know me. I wish there was someone who could see who I really am." The two sisters sat in silence for a while, lost in their thoughts. They had both been loved and admired by so many people, but neither of them felt like they had ever been truly understood. They wanted someone to see them for their hearts, not just their appearances. "I think that's why I've been waiting," Elena said finally. "I don't want someone who's just interested in me because of how I look. I want someone who values me for who I am inside." Rose smiled softly, her green eyes glowing in the firelight. "Me too, Elena, but maybe we have to be patient. Maybe the right person will come along when we least expect it." Elena nodded. "You're right, Rose. True love takes time. We'll just have to wait and trust that when the time comes, we'll know." The sisters spent the rest of the evening talking about their dreams and hopes for the future. They both agreed that they would be patient and wait for the right person to come along, someone who could see them for who they truly were. The next morning, after a light breakfast, the sisters decided to visit the village market. The market was busy, full of vendors selling fresh produce, clothes, and goods from the nearby towns. People were laughing and chatting as they went about their business. As they strolled through the market, heads turned to admire their beauty. Elena and Rose walked with grace, their movements elegant and smooth. But neither of them noticed the glances from the men in the crowd. Instead, they were simply enjoying the fresh air and the lively atmosphere of the market. Rose, with her bright smile, was the first to notice William. He was standing near a stall, arranging some cloth. As soon as he saw Rose, his heart skipped a beat. He had seen her many times before, but today there was something different about her. Her smile seemed to shine even brighter, and it made his heart race. He mustered all his courage and walked over to her. "Good morning, Rose," William said, his voice soft and warm. Rose blushed, surprised to hear him speak to her. "Good morning, William. How are you today?" "I'm doing well," he said, smiling shyly. "Would you like to see some of my goods today? I have some new fabrics that just came in." Rose nodded, feeling her heart flutter. "I'd love to, William." The two spent the next few hours walking through the market together. They talked about everything, from the weather to William's travels to other villages. Rose laughed at William's stories, and William found himself drawn to her easygoing nature and her warmth. It was easy to be around her, and before long, he felt like they had known each other for years. Meanwhile, Elena was speaking to Henry, who was picking out vegetables for his family. Elena admired how hard Henry worked to provide for his family, and Henry was equally impressed by Elena's gentle and intelligent nature. They didn't speak much, but there was a quiet connection between them, a feeling of comfort and trust. The days following their visit to the market were filled with small but meaningful moments. Elena and Henry began to spend more time together. Every time they met, their bond grew stronger. Henry would often visit Elena's home, helping her father with the garden or delivering fresh produce from his farm. It wasn't long before they began to talk about more than just the weather and the village. One afternoon, as the sun began to set, Henry and Elena walked along a quiet path that wound through the hills surrounding the village. The soft sound of birds chirping filled the air, and the warm colors of the sunset painted the sky. It was the perfect moment for quiet conversation. "You know, Henry," Elena said as they walked, "I've always admired how hard you work. You're always helping others, taking care of your family, and working in the fields. You don't just do it because you have to, but because you care so much." Henry smiled at the compliment, though his face turned slightly pink. "Thank you, Elena, but I'm just doing what's right. I've always believed that hard work is important. It makes life more fulfilling, don't you think? Elena nodded. I agree. But it's not just about working hard. It's about caring for the people around you. You're kind, Henry. That's what I admire most about you. Henry's heart skipped a beat at her words. He had always known Elena was beautiful, but hearing her speak so sincerely made him realize just how deeply he admired her. He wanted to be the kind of person who could make her smile like that every day. Meanwhile, Rose and William were also growing closer. They spent long afternoons talking about William's travels and the different villages he had visited. Rose loved hearing his stories, and William enjoyed listening to her laugh. He often found himself captivated by the way her eyes sparkled when she talked about the things she loved. One day, while walking along the village road, Rose asked him, "What was the best part about your travels, William?" William thought for a moment, a soft smile forming on his lips. I think it was meeting all the different people. Everyone has their own story, and I find it so interesting to learn about them. But he paused, looking at Rose. The best part was always coming home. There's something special about Ravenshade. It feels like it's where I belong. Rose's heart fluttered. It felt so nice to hear him say that. I've always loved Ravenshade too, she said softly. It's where I grew up, and it's home to me. William looked at her with a gentle smile. Maybe that's why it feels like the right place for both of us. As the days passed, the connection between Rose and William deepened. Rose realized that, unlike other men she had met, William was not interested in her just because of her appearance. He liked her for who she was. Her warmth, her kindness, her natural joy. And it made her feel something she hadn't felt in a long time. The beginning of true love. Now, from this point, the story will be continued in the next